Welcome to another episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. My name's Nick Ponte. I'm here, as always, with my co-host Stephen Clark. How you doing, Stephen?
Hello, Nick. Great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all good, man. I really enjoy this time of the week, recording our podcast. We always learn a little bit, but today it's just the two of us again. We're talking about flips.
You're gonna pick my brain on this latest flip up in Bridge Earn near Perth, aren't you?
I hate that expression, mate. See when you get an Instagram message, can I meet you for a coffee to pick your brain? There's nothing worse, man. And they give you that wee emoji with the pickaxe. So yeah, today I'm gonna pick your brain about your flip. I've not done a flip for ages, like literally
You've been a few years, but I mean, flip's a really good thing about it right now because the market's so hot to try and get some, back lets and get, most or all your money back out, like we covered on the podcast a couple of weeks ago there. So flips are quite a good thing because you can add value, and because the market's so fucking crazy and things are going over the home report value, flips are good at the moment.
The last one, because I did like a series of flips like back to back for a while. I did like 5 or 6, and then I stopped in 2017. I think the coincidence was that I started up my lettings business in 2017, which sucked up basically all my time, and then I concentrated on that, and I took my eye off the ball. Yeah, and then ever since,
you're right, mate. Flips are very onerous as well. Flips are hard work. Like there's a lot involved in them. It's not quite a kind of cookie cutter buy to let approach to a refurb, but you're always trying to go that extra mile and be as creative as you can to add the value. So I get that if you've got other things on, then flips can take a bit too much time.
Yeah. So let's get a catch up then. What have you been up to?
Busy with the commercial project that I picked up a few weeks ago. So busy there, and Aberdeen, we've got a block of 8 flats in a portfolio just going through next week, and another couple of refurbs, single units up there. I picked one up actually that I'm quite excited about. I'm trying to get away from doing single units to the portfolios, and I'm trying to get multiple properties in the one purchase, but it always seems so time consuming, and when a nice little deal comes along, I can't resist it. I'm like, oh, I like that one. But this one was it's one of the most expensive postcodes in Scotland. It's one in Aberdeen, AB15, like next to like Rubislaw Den and stuff like that. So it's on Forest Road, and I done quite an interesting product on it because I used a bridge to let product which I haven't used before. So what was really good about it was I picked up the property for 112.5 grand. And it needed a full refurb on it. But when the surveyor was sent out for the lender to value it, they valued it now based on its current condition and valued it on its end value for you put in a buy-to-let product. So the valuation came back at 200 grand as well for the end value. So it's quite a nice product because I know exactly what I can spend on my refurb to get all my money back out, and it's a healthy budget. So I quite like this one going into it. But it's a really, really good flat. I'm actually quite excited about the refurb as well.
Yeah, no, I seen that on your Instagram. Actually, it looked lovely, that area.
So what have you been up to, mate?
Oh, honestly, the lettings market in Glasgow has gone absolutely mental. It has been for the last couple of months, but I think now that time's approaching, the students are really needing to get settled now with the start of the university term. So what happened was we had this mass exodus of students and foreigners through the pandemic, and then everybody's come back now because universities are starting up. So there's a huge influx back again. And then I think what happened was as well during the pandemic, a lot of younger people moved back in with their parents and with their families and stuff as well. And now they're looking back again in the rental market. So anything that we've had on through the letting agency out for let in nice locations, West End, South Side, that sort of thing, has just been going absolutely mental. I mean, I literally put a property on within a couple of hours. I've probably got about 40 to 50 inquiries. It's that mental, obviously, because people have got alerts set up, tenants that are looking, they've got Rightmove alerts set up. And as soon as something comes on, they're just phoning up. They're like, people come on the phone and said, what do I need to do to secure this property? Just let me know. And it's like, they're that desperate. Then you go through the process of doing the viewings and that, and people are actually coming back to you, offering you like higher than the actual rent. And in some circumstances, obviously it's a supply and demand business as well, for the landlords. So we've put up some of the rents over and above normal market conditions, in some cases, 50, 75 pound over the normal market value, and people are still coming back and offering more. It's not something we'd really encourage. It's not really the done thing in lettings. It's not like, if you put a property up for sale, then you go at a closing date and you take the highest bidder. That's not really how we work in lettings, and it's not something I would encourage people to do. But at the end of
But
the day,
like you say, it's a supply and demand. It's a business for the investor or landlord who own the properties, and obviously our costs are incurring constantly, tax and everything, and we're making less and less money off an investment property. So is that a good thing for an investor to get that bit more rental income,
well, yeah,
can that be sustained?
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're acting on behalf of the landlord and the clients, obviously wanting to get as much as possible. So we need to communicate that back. We're not doing anything illegal or wrong by saying to the landlord, look, this tenant has come and offered more money for the property. What do you want to do? It's up to them really at the end of the day. But this will be interesting to see if this sort of level of rent increase can sustain, because obviously we have this huge demand at the moment. But once everybody gets settled and things start settling down, will these increased rents, 6 months down the line, will you still be able to get that much rent? It'll be interesting to see what happens. Also, as well, with the government talks of rent controls, a big hot topic at the moment. We've actually got a guest lined up for that coming very soon. So it's interesting times. But I, another wee story was I've started the TikToking again, Stephen, and I put a TikTok on of one of these West End flats, which was, it's high rent. You're talking £875 a month for a 1-bedroom flat. Do you know what I mean?
Do a dance.
Aye, so no, I didn't do the dance this time, but I put a TikTok on me, and I got absolute dogs abuse, absolute pelters. You want to see some of the abuse was getting, like, I mean, it was verging on. I mean, if you obviously I've got a thick skin, right? But if you didn't have a thick skin like me, you'd be suicidal with some of these comments. I mean, honestly, you can see how people really really take offense. And a lot of it was like, you money grabbing, thieving landlord, scum landlord, charging that for a 1-bedroom, all the rest of it. But yeah, it was a laugh. It was funny.
That's interesting, man. That's really good. I wonder. I'm the same as you. I wonder when that bubble was kind of going to pop, because we've had a bit of lull in Aberdeen recently with all the Six Center stuff, and like you say, students coming back, the demand is hugely increased, and I've got 100% occupancy rates, and I am getting slightly more as well for all the rents, and some of them I've actually put in not as great areas that I probably put 50 quid extra on the rent like I would usually try and do, but this time I didn't furnish them.
Right.
And they still got snapped up. Whereas before, you'd have to try and go that extra mile and furnish them and make them look stunning and put integrated appliances and just go above and beyond anything on the market just to get it rented at the decent rent. But no, I put it up and I've left some unfurnished and they've went. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that goes, and if it is just a demand for the like you said, touched on the students returning to the cities as well, and just kind of putting that extra pressure on the demand.
So let's get on to our topic of today, and it's I think it's the most famous house on Instagram, Bridge of Erne. Have you got a name for this house?
No, I should name them. I should name them.
Definitely, you should hashtag them. Definitely hashtag them. That would be good. But yeah, this house has popped up my Instagram feed about 20 times a day because there's 4 of you taking pictures of it. So just explain a little bit about what we're talking about here.
So yeah, the latest flip project was in Bridge Erne, in a little village near Perth. It's a really, really good little village, and a nice kind of community, quite a desirable area. There's a private school, all girls school in the town. So yeah, quite a prestigious area. And it was a joint venture between myself and some of the guys that attended the workshop and then joined the mastermind group, and they were looking for their first flip. And the one that we kind of come across was something that was far too big for them to jump into, and I kind of guided them on the purchase price and to get it secured, and then says, look, there's going to be an exit, and the exit ended up being me joint venturing with them on it. So yeah, there's it's been good. It's been an interesting project. It has been for probably annoying people on social media for the last 8 months probably.
I'll need to look on Google Maps to see exactly, remind myself where it exactly is, but it's not far from Perth's the nearest town, is it?
Yeah, that's right, mate. Yeah, it's about a mile from Perth. Yeah, it's right on the outskirts of Perth.
No, it looks like a really nice wee town. So apart from the big, what is it, like garage that's right next door to it? But
the downside, but yeah, no, exactly.
Well, just tell us a little bit, like, so how's the property sourced then?
So the property was sourced. It was actually 2 days after the very first workshop. Couple of the guys, Callum and Connor, went out kind of looking for flips. Like it was quite interesting because a lot of the guys that attended the workshop were keen to, I want to build up a portfolio of 20 properties and quit my job and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as I started going over case studies in detail with flips, they were like, shit, I want to do flips. You can make $100,000 profit on some flips. And obviously, it's a sexier thing, and people want to do stuff that's quite cool on Instagram and stuff like that. So they kind of flipped their kind of strategy on its head and thought, you know what, for the next couple of years, we're going to grow a pot by doing flips. So they went out straight away. Within 2 days, they found this one in Bridgend. And it was on the market for 260 grand. A detached traditional house, real nice original features in a nice area. The downside, like you mentioned there, was the kind of the used car garage next to it. But it's a small downside to a unique property and something that's there's not a lot of in the market. So I done a viewing with the guys. They done a viewing, and it got me up for the second viewing, and told me rough numbers of what they thought. And the one next door had sold for in 2017 for 330 grand. Obviously, you're 3-4 years away from that point, and you're in an increased kind of hot market. So we done our numbers based on 350 to 375 on the back end. And so I gave them a here's the range you need to get it from, and I think it was between 200 and 220 grand. If you can secure it for anywhere in that price bracket, there's a deal, and there's a fair bit of profit as a flip on it. So they were very obviously concerned about, but what will be the exit and how are we funding? It's too big for us. And I said, look, get this secured at that price, and we'll discuss further. So within I think it was by the end of the week, they'd already come back to me and says, right, I've got to secure the seller's willing to take 220 grand. Now, still quite a good. They put in practice what they've been learning on negotiations and and spotting opportunities. So they took action straight away. Now the seller, he was selling on behalf of his family who had I think it was his Annie who had died. I think a lot of the family grew up in this house. It's a big house, so because the property needed a whole lot of work, and the nearest comparables was the 330, maybe 350 grand work on it. Looking at it from the asking price, there wouldn't be a huge amount in it. So getting that extra that 40 grand off what the asking price was made a good difference on it, and it made it work. So yeah, so that was how it was sourced. It was sourced on the open market, and I think that I said this before in the podcast with the last one, the Kinross project. There's quite an opportunity in that price bracket because you're not appealing to everyone. No one can. There's not a lot of people that can spend that kind of money. Bridge it, mortgage it, and then have the refurb money there to go and buy it. And if you're competing against obviously the stuff that we find the most troublesome in the market trying to get a deal is you're trying to compete against people, owner occupiers, who can pay a hell of a lot more than you. But there's not a lot of people that can maybe afford to keep their own house, put a deposit on that, and then spend 100 grand on a renovation as well. So it puts it at a unique price point where there's not a huge amount of people in the market for that.
Yeah, interesting. Couple of points here. So we're talking about 8 months ago, right? Probably in the middle of lockdowns or in between lockdowns, maybe. Do you think timing had a part to play in managing to secure a good deal?
No, the market was hot then. The market was really fast then because I just sold Kinross, and I regretted selling Kinross off market and letting the buyer pick their finishes, and I think I could have got about 40 grand more for it put on the market.
Right. So this was just after everything opened up after the first lockdown, right?
Well, it was 6 months after the first lockdown opened. So remember how we all thought the market was going to crash, and all of a sudden they went the exact opposite and started going.
Yeah. Okay.
This was actually in the crazy thing. This was in the things going to closing dates, things going nuts off the market, and it was still an opportunity. It was spotted.
Right. So this is good because obviously people that are saying that there's no deals out there, then this gives them some hope still, and what about, was it strategic, do you think, that you guys were looking in, or the guys that sourced the property were looking in a more rural location rather than city centre, where most developers and people who do flips probably look to do their work, in terms of the location wise, now that there's this huge trend towards people moving out the city centres and buying bigger properties in rural? Was that strategic, or do you think that's just been a bit luck that kind of market has exploded?
No, it was something that I covered a lot in the workshop, how to spot flip opportunities and how to think outside the box and go into smaller, more rural places, more villages. Because if you can if you're doing something like that in a city centre, chances are that something similar sold in a city centre for a high price. Whereas in rural, you're not looking at a huge amount of sales going through. So, the need is comparable was, 3-4 years ago at 330. So if people are kind of basing the numbers based on that, well, the way the market's went, you've had a 20% increase or a 15% increase plus a hot market, you can get a little bit more. So it was by design to kind of hunt these more rural kind of settings or smaller towns and little hamlets where there's quite a unique price point as well. Yeah.
And I think that's definitely going to be a trend still. It's going to be strong for the next couple of years because, like, looking at some stats there, prices, in some of these kind of smaller towns, more rural locations are going up like 14-15% compared to city centres, maybe 7 to 8%, year on year. So that's definitely, working from home, people moving out of city centres. We've said it before. I think it's going to be people just wanting more space.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to sell a couple of my own personal name and my buy-to-let portfolio that are that tick these boxes because I think I can capitalise on a hot market. And like you say, the price is increasing. And so I think you're right, mate.
So why did you guys think that this was going to make a good flip? We've obviously touched on the location there, but
so the potential to add value, the fact that it hadn't been decorated or touched in probably 40 to 50 years. Had its old Aga cooker from, I think it was installed in 1953. The guy says he remembers being a child and it being installed.
What did you do with that?
We had to scrap it.
Oh, gutted, man. Was there not like a demand for that on like eBay or something like that? No.
We tried to sell it. And I ended up trying to give it away for free on our social media channels, and I eventually had to be scrapped. So it was quite a shame. But the potential to add value was there. With the property being in the kind of current state. There was quite a lot of value adding that you could have done, and because it was large and unique, and the spaces were kind of built in, was it in 1889? I think the house was built. Like it's built for, the bathroom was tiny and the kitchen was small, but there was the potential of opening up spaces and putting in steel and being really creative for the layout to kind of maximize a modern family home and bring this right up to the kind of modern times.
Well, let's just talk about that while you're talking about like adding the value. Then what exactly did you do then? What was the kind of the real, it's a chunky project. I've seen some of the steels and that going in. What sort of stuff did you do?
So there was I'll probably talk about that a little bit on the renovation side of it as well, because we kind of thought that we could have spent 60 grand on a kind of cosmetic renovation, full renovation inside, but when we got the time of offer accepted and then picking up the keys, the market was getting hotter and hotter, and people were paying a premium for high quality, and like you say, touching on the kind of the more rural locations as well. So we knew the budget was going to be blown, but then we decided to kind of create, like, as soon as we got the keys, I went more in depth on how I can creatively add the value to the property, and that was going to be layout changes. So the major one downstairs was putting in steel on the back end to open up the extension to the kitchen, moving the kitchen. So the kitchen would then become a bathroom, a huge big bathroom, right, and open up the kitchen, so the lounge space, a drawing room space, you would maybe call it, straight around into the back end. So that was going to be the big kind of value adding downstairs. You'd block up the entrance to your utility room and make then the old kitchen a massive bathroom. So that was the main value downstairs.
And where do you get these ideas from when you go into a property? Then do you just kind of see that straight away, or is it obviously you did a similar thing, with the bifold doors and that in Kinross, which worked really well. But do you see in your spare time, do you look through like home magazines and all this interior design stuff and that, are we?
No, unfortunately, I'm not that obsessed with it. I do, you know yourself, having a young family, you want to you know how a house flows, how it works, and we're in an age range and a kind of demographic range where we're the type of people that are going to be buying these houses, these kind of higher end.
So you got to start with like your end in mind again. So start with your end market, your target market. Who are you going to be selling this house to?
Wait, this is a clear point. This is what I kind of had to keep. There was 4 of us involved, or 3 of us involved in this joint venture, so to speak. But the amount of times that I had to like firmly fucking say to the guys, this is not your fucking taste. You're 26-year-old. I don't care what tiles you like, what flooring you like, what kitchen you like, what taps you like. This is not your taste. this is a 42-year-old woman with 2 kids, and she wants to entertain. And do you know what I mean? So I had to keep kind of reinstating this point constantly. Like, you have to, from minute one, think about your end.
They want to put in like a games room, a PlayStation, and all that.
Not as quite, but do you know what I mean? Like, the kind of, oh yeah, I don't like the kind of the hob being in the middle of the island, and I'm like, mate, this is going to be the woman's going to be cooking, or the man's going to be cooking on the island.
Oh, careful there, careful there.
Did you see that? I throw that back there. Yeah, but do you know what I mean? They're going to be cooking on the island, entertaining their guests. Their guests are going to sit in front of the breakfast bar, and the dining table is going to be there, and there's a little seating area, so it's, you know, an entertaining space. You have to think outside the box, and then the bifolds are there, and the kids can be playing in the garden. Yeah. You have to really think deep of who you're appealing to, what's their style, what's their arrangement. Like, no, you know, a single couple or a single person is not going to buy a 4-stroke 5-bedroom detached house with a huge garden and an open plan living area. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be a family. It's going to be professionals. It's going to be people that want to entertain. Like, you have to kind of think of who that end user is and try and get in their head when you come up with that space. And that was what kind of creatively gave me the idea for the steel to open up the kind of kitchen, dining room, lounge area with bifolds and looking up in the garden, all that kind of stuff.
And we should say we're no short of pictures here on this project. So if you head over to Stephen's Instagram page, you'll be able to see a lot of the stuff. And shout out to the other boys as well, because they've been posting
loads of stuff on their Instagrams as well. So we'll tag their Instagrams on the show notes as well, so everyone can check out their
because I think I'm going to do a highlight video of it as well. You know, you always need to see it in pictures to appreciate what they've done there. So let's talk about, you obviously had that budget 60k. So how did that spend go? You know, how did the renovation go, and what happened to that spend?
So that spend pretty much got blown right out of the water by about 40%. It's probably my biggest overspend on a project, but most of it was by design, to be fair, because the value that we wanted to add upstairs was the property originally had one small bathroom downstairs. So moving the kitchen and making open plan gave us a huge bathroom, traditional bathroom downstairs, you know, freestanding bath, separate shower, his and her sinks, like really go to town on the bathroom. But we wanted our bathroom upstairs, and we wanted to get an ensuite in. So we ended up going for a big dormer on the back end to kind of give us the space to kind of keep the bedroom size, or make the bedroom size bigger, plus shorten one bedroom and put a bathroom in the middle. And in the other end, we're going to go for a dormer, but we end up opting to just kind of make an ensuite out of the eave space and the roof space. So yeah, that was a creative kind of value done upstairs as well, which was kind of went from the one small bathroom to huge traditional bathroom downstairs, the master ensuite, and upstairs family bathroom as well.
So you're really bringing this kind of old traditional house into like a modern, functioning, practical family home, basically, is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely, and obviously, so the costs spiraled with the designer trying to get that maximize the value. We knew we were going to be spending a lot of money on steel for structural work for downstairs, the dormer upstairs, the bifold door requires steel above it. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of structural work, a bit of layout change. There'll be a fair bit of 3 bathrooms to do that we weren't going to scrimp on. You know, it was decent, all quality stuff. Even the kitchen as well, it was like stone worktops on the island and stuff like that. So some of it was by design, but the rest of it we got hit obviously right bang on the middle with these price increases, where it's particularly timber.
Right.
So
due to the pandemic, basically. But let me ask you about this, because this is where you know, when I was doing my flips, right, they were all pretty basic. I don't think I would. You know, they're pretty basic flips, you know, like, I mean, the stuff was just like laminate worktops and quite cheap kitchens, and I never dressed them up, you know, like you guys do and stuff like that. Now, when I come and look at your flips, and like, my flips are a load of shite compared to yours, do you know what I mean? So when you go from buying worktops for like, you know, 50 or 60 pounds for a 3-meter worktop to actually buying, you know, the stone worktops and all that, what kind of goes through your head? Because I think I would struggle putting that money out. Do you know what I mean?
That's because you're too tight. Nah, yeah. I do kind of struggle with it as well. But yeah, I think you've kind of got to buy into the.
What are you talking price wise for stone worktops?
We were about pretty much the same price as the kitchen. To be fair, like I think it's about £2,000 for the worktop.
Jesus.
But I think the property and the price range just deserved that extra bit. Like it was real herringbone flooring, oak flooring, you know, 28 mil thick individual planks. Like it fucking was a minefield to fit.
And you're hoping that people are going to pay a premium for this, right? The type of person that's going to, our family that's going to come, they're going to come in and they're going to be like, wow, this is quality.
Well, that's it, and obviously we've got the end valuation back in, so it worked out kind of, you know, how I anticipated it. It was quite funny because the guys had a spreadsheet based on, you know, their end value doing a little bit better, and then I think they had like 3 tabs, and I think they named the third tab Beyond Their Wildest Dreams, and it was like reaching a 400k end value, and I said from the start the end value is going to be 425, like 425 all day long. And they were kind of, I think they just didn't believe in it, didn't kind of see it, the vision of like how could it be worth that kind of price. But it was funny because as the project goes and you see the finished product come together, it was like, holy shit, can we get almost £500,000 for this thing? And they were going like way over and above and beyond, like what the fuck? Because I can see it coming to life now. But yeah, we went for a high end finish, which we'll see if it pays off or not.
Right, so we should say, what stage are you guys at with this, right? You've got it on the market now?
So yeah, I was keen not to do the podcast and talk about numbers and stuff like that, but it went on the market last week, and the home report went on a couple of weeks ago, and it came back at 420 grand valuation. I'm always very dubious about doing stuff like this and posting on social media and talking numbers, because you know it's not over until the sale goes through and the money hits the bank. And interesting enough, we tried to get on just after, you know, the school holidays kind of went back. I always find it's a good time to put properties on the market, because I think people are kind of looking to move house. It's usually after holidays and stuff like that. It's obviously maybe quite a different dynamic right now because people are not going on holiday, but it's usually people wanting to move house and settle in before Christmas time. But we've had it on the market for a week. There's not been a huge amount of viewers, but what we did say to the estate agent was we wanted to kind of weed out the time wasters. We didn't want just every man and dog looking at the property and getting excited because we've got 40 viewers booked in. We really wanted people that were, you know, sold, cash in the bank, ready to go, all that kind of stuff. So that's made it not get as many viewers in the door. So just on yesterday, we spoke to the estate agent and said, you know what, let more people in, reduce the criteria, because right now the market's that hot that if someone's trying to sell a 250, 300 grand house to move up the ladder, I'm pretty sure they can sell the house within a few days or a week. So that might be the type of people that were buying it. So hopefully we'll get a wee bit more. But I mean, the feedback's been good from the few viewers that's been in and they're interested. So you never know. But it's a unique price range. It's 420 grand, so it's not the most affordable house. It's going to be a bit unique in what it is. And obviously, I think the downside of it is going to be this car garage next to it.
What about landscaping? Have you spent a bit on landscaping?
We did spend a lot of money on landscaping, actually. I thought it was quite I usually do with a flip, but with this one we spent a bit more money as well on. We took the old traditional red sandstone from the wall we knocked down in the kitchen, and we built a red sandstone wall at the front, half the garage, and like half the kind of wall to kind of at the front of the house. So that was a bit of an expense, obviously reclaiming the sandstone from the house and building it, which tells a nice story, and people like that kind of stuff. But it was quite an expense. We ended up monoblocking the driveway. I think it's about 100 square meters in monoblock and stuff
huge,
like that.
Yeah.
And then you know, Indian stone paving, patio off the bifolds, and then kind of scraped it, backfilled it, made sure the site was level and cleared, and a 6-foot fence all around it and stuff like that. So I think the landscaping was probably around 10 grand as well on. So there's a bit of money in landscaping, to be fair, but I think you want to leave no stone unturned when it comes to projects like that.
I think you've got like a lot of pride there as well, because you can leave that project knowing when, you know, whoever you sell this home on to, that everything has been done to the highest quality as well. So there's that kind of feel good factor when you actually hand the keys over, or the estate agent hands the keys over as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if I've told you this before, but I've created an email address for Maya, my daughter, when she was born, and I always, you know, write her an email every few months and tell her what I'm working on and what's happening in her life, stuff like this. And I take quite a bit of pride on telling her the addresses of the properties that I'm just, especially a flip like that, because I kind of think, like you just touched on, but she could probably drive past that in 15, 20 years time. Like my dad renovated that house, that probably would have been a ruin or run down if it wasn't for my dad, and look at it, it still looks stunning or whatever. Yeah, so I do like that, but I kind of feel like on the other side of that coin, when you do the properties to such a good standard, people expect their expectations are so much higher. So when they actually move in and they start seeing, oh, there's the paint running on the skirt, or there's a bit of mark on the wall, or that's needing filled in, or the screw, the screws popped there, like they start coming back with snagging a week after it's sold, or and you're like, fuck off, it's not a new built house.
Aye.
So it kind of it works and it swings and roundabouts. But I said that to the guys, when we sell it, just make sure we keep a couple of grand back for snagging, because they will come up and say some kind of snagging. The Kinross buy, I done exactly the same, but because the Kinross deal got such a good deal, I kind of just said to them, look, if you're not happy with the property, happy to refund you fully, and we can put it on the market. I know we'll get an extra 30 or 40 grand.
Yeah. I think this is really interesting, because we're at this is such a different conversation to that conversation that we had with Kinross, because we did a podcast way back on your Kinross, which was the last big flip project you did as well. And if you go, it'll be interesting to listen back to that, because at the time, we had a lot of conversations around what's going to happen to the market. What's going to happen to the market? Is it going to crash? You were like, I need to get rid of this before like going into the new year and stuff like that. And
it went the exact opposite of where we thought it was going. Even all our Zoom calls throughout lockdown and talking to all our investors. I mean, we had 80, 100 people on the calls most months, and everyone was in a bit of opinion, like, oh, the market's going to go down. Lockdown, people are losing their jobs, they're on furlough, furlough's going to end. There's a lot of doom and gloom. So I kind of bought into that as well. And I usually wouldn't take note of the media and what people are saying. I'd usually just kind of get my own feelers out and tentacles and make up your own mind. But I bought into it. We sold it kind of off market, so to speak. We marketed it, but we got a buyer in to pick their finish. So they end up picking their finish and going high end, porcelains of tiles and herringbone floor and stuff like that. And I remember when we sold it, we agreed a purchase price of 2.6, 2.5. And they asked for a home report to be refreshed on the week of the sale going through. And the surveyor came out and he just kind of smirked at me and he's like, what do you think you'd get if you put this on the market? And I just shook my head and I'm thinking, no, I don't want to think about that. And he goes, no, what do you think? And I said, I think it would start with a 3. What do you think? And he goes, I think you're absolutely right. It would go over 300 grand. And I thought, you fucker. But it's weird how the market changes and moves. And I mean, it's a lot of difference. I mean, we've still done really well at the flip and we got exactly what we wanted out of it.
Yeah. You still did well. That's the main thing. So
yeah, and I still think these things happen for a reason as well, because with flips are and now you don't want to hold a hold of the property on the market. Like if we held on to that to try and get that extra 30 grand, 40 grand more, then Bridge Earn went straight. Like I think we were 2 or 3 weeks picking up the keys before Bridge Earn, after then Kinross sold. So if we had to wait an extra couple of months, we wouldn't have took on Bridge Earn and got another profit. So you want to be in and out these deals quite quickly, and these are. I was speaking to some guys recently on the last workshop, and I always like mixing and flips onto build my own portfolio, because I always feel like that cash pot's really good, and particularly now that if you're stuff that I'm buying in Aberdeen, you're buying properties every month. If you're leaving 2, 3, 4, 5 grand in each property at scale, that's how it mounts up. If you buy 10 a year, you're 50 grand in a negative hole. So if you're doing flips and making this kind of profit, then that means you're no money in on these property deals and your portfolio's growing at the same time. But if you can't find that pot or that pot of cash, then there's a big deficit sitting there on your portfolio growing as well.
Excellent. Right. So you're aiming for 100k in profit for this one. So I wish you all the best, mate. You've cursed yourself now by coming on the podcast. So
of course, yeah. I mean, either way, whichever way it goes, I think we're happy with the result. Whichever way, if we can hit that, we were thinking the way the market was going to go, we're maybe going to hit 450. I don't see it because of the kind of, we've not had a huge amount of viewings. It's going to be a unique property to a unique person. So I will see. It's going to be a nice one. I'm quite excited to see how it goes.
Well, if you need any more help with getting viewers through the door, then I can always do a wee video for you on my TikTok, mate. Get a few more people in.
Get the abuse lined up for you, mate. Yeah.
Get the teenagers up. So anyway, so hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, guys, if you go across onto myself and Stephen's Instagram pages, you can see what we're up to there, especially when we're talking about projects like this, because you can see exactly the day-to-day trials and tribulations of what actually goes into a project.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll share Connor Clark's, Callum Clark's, and Chris McPherson's Instagrams on the show notes. So you got to go and look at their page. They've been sharing quite a lot of the journey. I will do a highlight reel on my Instagram, or it's a highlight, but you can do a project, so you can kind of see the whole journey on the project.
Yeah, terrible that you coming on here and stealing all the credit when those poor lads were up till all hours, stripping off wallpaper and all that. You come in here and take the limelight.
Absolutely, I'm keen. I am keen to get them on the podcast because I think their perspective of showing it from their point of view, first a project of that scale, they'll have a completely different perspective of it, and it'd be good to see their story of it. But I'd like to get them on once we've got a sale price, once we've got a profit, once we've got something, so they've got a result rather than it's easy for me to talk about it because I've done so many of these, but it'd be quite nice to get there. And they're fucking nervous. They're shouting themselves right now because obviously we're waiting on that sale price and it's the unknown, whereas I know it's the way it's going to go.
Don't want to tempt too much fate either. So that's all good. I hope you find that useful, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot, guys.